Alright, so I said I would do an FAQ before the global version of SINoALICE launched, and here we are doing it. First of all, big thanks to NatFallen on the SINoALICE Discord. I think we're calling ourselves the official public Discord because, we're technically the public Discord for the game. We don't have any contact with the game developers or whatever. I'm pretty sure the Facebook's run by them, though. I don't know. All I know is we're the Discord. We show up whenever you Google SINoALICE Discord, and the official subreddit links to us. You know what? That's good enough for me. Validation. Anyways, this FAQ is going to be really to the point. We're going to talk about the gacha, jobs, weapons, the rerolls, guild stuff, Colo, and then a bunch of miscellaneous stuff that I think should be talked about. First of all, let's go into the gacha, the most important part of a gacha game. The gacha for SINoALICE has weapons and nightmares. Summarize, nightmares are the summons of the game, and high rarity ones are effectively unicorns. Super hard to get. Weapons can be split into job weapons and normal weapons. Job weapons simply grant a character's job upon obtaining them the first time. Normal weapons don't. There's no other notable differences between them. That's it. A 10 roll in the gacha costs 300 gems, and it'll net you 100 desire medals. These medals reset monthly, and you can exchange them in the metal shop. The metal shop allows you to outright just trade for the rate-up job that's in the gacha, or the job weapon in case you want multiple copies of the weapon. Just so you know, sparking a job will not give you the associated weapon with it. It's one or the other. You can also spark for the nightmare that's on rate-up if there is one. That's up to you. It costs 1,500 medals for a rate-up job. And since you get 100 medals for 300 gems, that's 4,500 gems, and you can trade for whatever's in the gacha. Almost everything. I don't want to say everything, because it's not always everything, but at least the stuff that's shown on it. The only exception is the specialized gacha. That contains non-sparkable and semi-limited weapons with better skills and stats than other gacha weapons have. They're short-term, those gachas are pretty in and out, so take advantage of them if you need better equipment. Now I do want to talk about the jobs. Jobs in SINoALICE are obtained in multiple ways. From clearing story missions to clearing events in the gacha, obviously. And you can also obtain special, powerful jobs from the Grand Colo shop. I'll talk about that later. There's two archetypes of jobs in SINoALICE, DPS and support. DPS jobs include Breaker, Crusher, Paladin, and Gunner. Support jobs include Cleric, Minstrel, Sorcerer, and Magician. Focusing on multiple jobs and weapon types, not really recommended since the investment is massive, but if you don't plan on playing competitively and just want to play casual and do whatever, no issue, go ahead. But if you plan on playing really hardcore, ranking, all that stuff, you're going to have to be selective. Jobs can be leveled up by using job experience. Job experience is obtained by using weapons during combat. Each weapon has an associated SP cost, and when you use it, you get that back as job experience. Job experience goes into a global pool. You can spend it on any job. It doesn't matter if you play your entire game as Snow White's Breaker here. You can upgrade every job with the experience that you get from it. So play whatever you like the most. Beyond that, once a job has reached the max level, or even before that, you can obtain Arcana cards, which are leveled 1 through 5, and they're designed to limit break the job level and add 2 levels per card. Each job level brings more buffs. Sometimes it's a global buff, sometimes it's a buff for that unit or that character, but cumulative gains from jobs can't be ignored. It's really worth it. Example, Snow White's Breaker job here on the screen gives the following stats. Level 1, Blade 10% up in the areas affiliated with Snow White. So that's right out of the box. You just get Blade damage 10% up. You job level her to 2, another Blade 10% up. Level 3, Physical attack plus 50. That's global because that doesn't say Snow White or anything. So that's good. Level 4, Physical defense plus 50. Again, there's no Snow White notification on there or anything, so that's, again, global. And so on and so forth. So collecting lots of jobs, leveling the jobs, limit breaking the jobs, these will give tons of passive stats. Really good. There's another point to note that there are areas that the characters are affiliated with. You know, areas affiliated with Snow White. You know, I mentioned that before there with the levels, the buffs. So the characters already get bonuses on these maps. I'm pretty sure they do, but I know that these buffs further boost that. So food for thought when you're playing on maps and whatnot, if you know what you're bringing into the fight. So pretty much the long and short, jobs, you want as many as you can, you want to level them up as fast as you can, and you want to get all those stat gains because it'll go really far. There's no best job. Just straight up, there's no best job in SINoALICE. It's purely your play style, what weapons you have in your grid. The only exception is Mage. It has a single demerit no other class has, and the explanation as to why is kind of lengthy. I'll save it once I passed over the meat of the FAQ here. So next one, weapons. Weapon skill levels, limit breaking, all that stuff we're going to go over here real quick. Weapons in SINoALICE, super important. Probably like the most important part of the combat mechanics of this game. First off, if you weren't aware, the game uses an elemental triangle. Fire, wind, water. Fire beats wind, wind beats water, water beats fire. Straightforward enough. You're probably going to build a grid for each element. Maybe you won't. Whatever. There's 3 weapon types in the game: physical, magical, support. Physical weapons are swords and hammers. Magical weapons are guns, polearms, and orbs. And support handles the rest: tomes, instruments, staves. To expand on why you want to take note of this stuff, monsters have varying resistances to physical and magical damage. So making sure you know what kind of damage is needed to counter whatever you're fighting, I'd say that's pretty important. You don't want to be swinging your sword against something that has nigh infinite physical defense. Kind of a lost battle at that point. There's 2 types of jobs, DPS and support, kind of split up there. DPS can equip swords, guns, hammers, and polearms. DPS, swords, guns, hammers, polearms. Support has tomes, instruments, staves, and orbs. Instruments give you buffs. Tomes give you debuffs, and staves are used to heal. None of them do damage. So with that in mind, making grid entirely of instruments, tomes, and staves, you'll have no damage skills. So if you're going to play solo, be wary of that. You can mix orbs into your support grids if you need to do damage, so keep that in mind. Actually, I can show you here real quick, just so you kind of know what each of them look like, because I think that would probably help. Because I do happen to have a physical class and a support class. So this one here, the primary weapon is sword. She can equip swords, hammers, bows, polearms. And then the other one that I have here, cleric. The main hand weapon is a staff, whatever. And then you have instruments, tomes, orbs, and staff. Now, it's just kind of remember what those look like when you're playing. It's pretty straightforward. It's what you get on the tin. Now, weapons have skills. They can be default leveled up to 15. Limit breaking weapons using copies will increase this to a maximum of 20. The first limit break gives you 1 extra skill level. The second one gives you 1 more. The third one gives you another 1. The last one will give you 2. Just so you know the breakdown of it. Once a weapon has been upgraded to the maximum level cap, so ignoring limit breaks, ignoring weapon skills, whatever, you roll in the gacha, you level it up to the max level you can right then and there, you can evolve it. Now, evolving it increases the rarity, and the only things you require are the materials and the gold. Shouldn't be too hard to get your hands on, but yeah. When you evolve a weapon, the level is reduced back to 1, but any limit breaks are carried over, and any weapon skills are carried over as well. Once you've evolved the weapon, you can use the original form of the weapon to further limit break it, so you don't have to evolve each version of the weapon to MLB it further. So don't worry about rushing to evolve something right away. Now, some weapons can actually be evolved more than once. To figure out which ones can do that and which ones can't do that. Let's pop on over here real quick. Ba-da-ba. So this one, no, that won't be it. Which the third one's limit break or evolve, isn't it? Yeah. The diamonds that you saw there were the limit breaks. As you limit break a weapon, those light up. I don't think I can actually select anything here, can I? Because I don't think any of them are able to be evolved. Yeah, no. Anyways, if a weapon has a spade on it, it means it can be evolved. If a weapon has just diamonds, it means that it can only be limit broken. What I mean by spade, oh, you know what? The nightmare that's in the gacha can be evolved. Yeah, the SS nightmare can always be evolved. That's in the Desire Metal shop. Anyways, while I'm navigating to that, I will continue here. So, regarding weapons, because you can only have one weapon of each type in your group, so you can only have you can't have multiples of a weapon. That's the way to put it. That means there's no point hoarding copies. You might as well just start using them to limit break your stuff right away. Yeah, so here, spade means it can be evolved. Diamonds mean limit break. So this thing can evolve from SS to L, or SR to whatever Global's using as a notation. Anyways, so if you roll the gacha and you got your hands on a bunch of a SS weapon, you might as well just put it all together and limit break it, because there's no other use for them. So just keep that in mind. Now, grids are the majority of your power in this game. You put weapons in your grid, they give you stats. And actually, I'll open that real quick just so you can kind of see where those pools sit. So when you play the game, you kind of know what you're looking at. There's a lot of information this game throws at you number-wise. So here we have our 20-slot primary grid. We have our physical attack, physical defense, magical defense. And that's our overall power and HP, all that stuff. Now, there is a subgrid for everything in this game. Subgrids, when you have all the items in here, their cumulative points are taken and 10% is added to your total pool. So your subgrid, important to maintain, but your main grid is the real meat and potatoes of your damage and your power. So make sure you're focusing on upgrading everything that's in here more than anywhere else. Super important. You are able to consume gear that you have no use for to get charm medals. They're used in upgrading nightmares, upgrading gear, all sorts of things. The value of medals you get back from consuming gear depends on the rank of the gear, and that's pre-evolution. So if you had an A rank weapon and you managed to rank it up and evolve it to SS, and you broke it down and you consumed it, it would give you medals as if it was rank A. A rank gives 1 medal, S gives 8, SS gives 64. So, yeah, just in case you do have a ton of excess gear of the same stuff. But don't worry, the charm medals are fully farmable through the Colosseum. Only consider consuming gear you really do not need. You don't need to rush charm medals because you can just farm them. Now, I do want to talk about rerolling because, oh my lord, the amount of people that ask about rerolling in this game and what they need to reroll for is absurd. First, there is no tier list for this game. Nothing. Not a zip. Not for jobs, not for nightmares, not for weapons. There's no tier list. Jobs are important, weapons are important, but rerolling will not help you nearly as much as it would in other games. First, you're going to be replacing pretty much everything you roll in your first roll. Like in short order, like you're pretty much going to, like maybe a month and a half, 2 months tops, and they're gone for good. There's no point fretting about it, especially considering the advantage you're going to have is so absolutely minimal. You're only getting 10 things from your tutorial roll. That makes half of a grid at best. So out of 40 weapons, that's 20 grid, 20 subgrid, you're going to get 25% at most. And that is like not considering maybe you'll roll a couple extra copies of a weapon, which means now you're down to like 7 weapons in your grid. Sure, they give you a little extra stats, but you're going to be replacing them anyways. Don't worry about it. Instead, my personal opinion for your tutorial roll, try getting more jobs. Those go way further than weapons will because job stats are permanent. Even if you get more jobs later, you'll still have the passes from those original jobs. So me, what I'm going to do when this game comes out, I'm going to reroll for 2 jobs or more. Now, one thing you might want to chew on, some food for thought here. There are 3 SS ranked nightmares in the tutorial role. In terms of shelf life for these nightmares, they're top tier. The buffs they bring are unique, and due to the rarity of high ranked nightmares in this game, you're probably never going to replace them. They're probably going to sit in your nightmare summon pool for the duration of this game, for at least like a year. And frankly, that's crazy. If you have the patience, try to roll a job in one of the SS nightmares. If you're like the patron saint of patience, aim for 2 jobs in one of the nightmares. Like, I don't really know how to express this, but jobs are like at the top of the totem pole. The SS nightmares are pretty much in second place, but they're so close to first place, it's almost negligible, the difference. And then the rest of the weapons are so far at the bottom of the pile, it doesn't even matter. Like, straight up, you're going to... There's no point. Don't worry about your rerolls. Aim for jobs, aim for the nightmares, call it a day once you're satisfied with those. You'll get at least one of every character's base job anyway by just playing the game. So even if your job roles aren't your favorite character or whatever, it's fine. You'll spend maybe an hour playing the first chapter of every character's campaign, and you'll have at least one job of all the characters. So it's fine. Don't worry about that. Play your favorites. It's cool. Plus, you get to pick a character at the start anyways, so whatever. Now, talking about guilds. Guilds are big in this game because Coliseum and the PvP is massive, but guilds, pretty important. There's certain jobs and gear you can only obtain through guild versus guild battles, which means you have to be in a guild for. Joining a guild, super easy. The only requirement, you have to clear Chapter 2, Part 10 of any character story quest. So, very low requirements. Once you've joined a guild, you'll have the bar at the top here fill out with your guild's name, and this locked off thing will become a timer. That timer shows you the time until your Coliseum slot. I'll talk about the Coliseum later, but your guild has an option, I think it's like 4 or 5 time slots for the Coliseum, and you get a 20-minute window that your guild can play in the Coliseum during that. Now, the timer just shows a countdown. When you're 3 minutes before the Coliseum fight starts, you and all your guildies can click on it. Boom, you'll be in the Coliseum lobby, and you just wait for it to tick out and you're good. But beyond that, guilds during medal events can have every member farm to a set milestone. I can't remember the exact number, but I know that the game pretty much communicates to you how much you have to farm, and depending on your guild's performance, you can get gems, rewards, all that. So being active, recommended. Now, a guild consists of, I think it's 15? It's 15, right? There's a normal comp that people are using, 5 DPS, 3 clerics, and then 7 minstrels, sorcerers, kind of a mix. The minstrels and sorcerers can use mixed grids, so maybe throw in a couple of orbs in there or whatever for some damage, but that's up to the guild and the players to decide, doesn't matter. But that's pretty much what everyone does. That's like the meta. So we're going to talk about the Coliseum, because Coliseum, very important. Very important. So, first off, normal Coliseum. 15 vs 15, real-time guild vs guild combat, no AIs allowed, lasts for 20 minutes a day during your time slot. Joining Colo, easy. Like I said, that timer will count down 3 minutes before you click on it. You can hang out in the lobby, the rest is automatic, throws you into a fight, off you go. Now, during Coliseum, there's a mechanic called Shinma. Shinma, at least that's how it's called in JP. I don't know what they're going to do with Global. We'll find out. Shinma buffs 1 support weapon and 2 DPS weapons. It displays 3 weapon types when the buff goes off, and the weapons get boosted effect for the duration. So it really helps you out when you're fighting. So, like I said, 1 support weapon, 2 DPS weapons get the buff. The only exception is the orb weapon type. That will never get a buff. Shinma doesn't buff it, doesn't recognize it. It's like a third-class citizen. I'll talk a little more about that later. Shinma occurs probably about 5 minutes and 12 minutes into a Colo fight, so on average. So, as for rewards for Coliseum, Your guild's ranking determines your payout rewards, how many medals you get, and all that. Now, there's an advanced version of Colosseum called the Grand Colo. It's just a league version of Colo, so there's tiers, divisions, and all that. Your guild can apply to participate in the Grand Colo by the guild leader or sub-leader, just going and pressing a couple of buttons. Grand Colo, like I said, divisions. The players or guilds that rank higher than 1,000, so you're out of the top 1k, you get put into Division 3, 1,000 to 500 is Division 2, and under 500 is Division 1. To give you kind of an idea of the rewards you can get here, top 200 in Division 1 nets you something like 1,800 gems a month. So each month the game gives you 6 10 rolls, just for playing the Colosseum and doing well. Take that as you will. Talking about Grand Colo, there's a very important thing that Grand Colo gives you beyond gems. So as you participate in Grand Colo, you're going to get Grand Colo medals. These can be exchanged for a variety of rewards, including some of the most powerful jobs in the game, known as half nightmare jobs. Half nightmare jobs are very special. They pretty much focus on the main weapon type. So, got like a frog in my throat. So when I was showing off Snow White Breaker here, you can see that her main weapon is a sword. If this was a half nightmare job, any swords in her weapon grid would get a huge buff, whereas everything else would have a huge demerit. You can still equip them, you can still use other weapons, that's fine, but they're going to be wholly ineffective compared to the main weapon. So why that's important? Early on, when you're kind of deciding what you want your grid to look like and all that, you can decide. Do you want to invest for the future and set up for a half nightmare job so that when they become available and you get one, you can just start steamrolling? Or do you want to cross that bridge when you get there? Or do you just not care? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Just so you understand what's coming in the game, so you can kind of, so you don't just get overrun by people that saw it, kind of knew about it coming. So if you're going to look into half nightmare jobs, figure out which one you're going to use, figure out what kind of weapons you want to invest into, and kind of focus on building those up. To get a half nightmare job, it costs 50 Grand Colo medals. At least that's what it costs in JP to buy one of the jobs. Ranking in the top 10,000 guilds during Grand Colo gives you 75 Grand medals. So as long as you and your guild are in the top 10k, there you go. Got yourself a half nightmare job. To boot, Grand Colo medals carry over. They don't reset like the Desire medals do, so you can just slowly save them over time. Pretty sweet. And there's also, in the Grand Medal shop, there's infinite evolution weapons, but those are out of the scope of basic FAQ, so we'll worry about those later. But yeah, there's lots of really cool rewards in the Colosseum shop. There's tons of cool rewards in the Grand Colo shop. I highly recommend getting into a guild as soon as possible and participating in these things to start amassing those medals, because it will go a long way later on. Now, since we've kind of left the bog of the more frequently asked questions, let's start going over some of the lesser ones. First off, is the game free to play friendly? Yes and no. Gems, easy enough to obtain and save. You're not going to feel terribly pressured about missing your favorite character in the gacha. Good weapons, you can farm them and upgrade them over time, so it's not really a big deal. But if you plan on ranking in Grand Colo for rewards, like ranking high, you're probably going to have to pass on rolling for jobs and roll on the spec weapon gachas instead. Flip side, you can always throw your wallet at the game and get the both of both worlds, but that kind of defeats the purpose of free to play, right? So it's not free to play friendly if you want to be competitive in the Colosseum and Grand Colo while rolling for jobs, unless you're a luck sack. In which case, I better see you roll every Snow White job. I've got my eyes on you. Now, Mage. I mentioned earlier, Mage has a demerit, and I mentioned it during the Colosseum talk with the Shinma buff. That's actually it. The lone reason why Mage is considered the worst job in the game, heavy air quotes, is straight up because Shinma doesn't buff orbs. That's it. In a DPS fight, your mage will always hit normally, while their opponents or allies will be hitting for bonus damage. I guess in this case allies, because it's an ally buff. It just doesn't make sense to main a mage with this type of demerit in Colosseum. If you want to, go ahead. You're just kind of intentionally crippling yourself. Even in JP, 2 years down the line, there's still no Shinma support for mages. So outside of that though, like outside of Colosseum and PvP, Mage, an excellent class, lots of versatility and flexibility to it, and if you're strong enough, you don't need the Shinma buffs anyways. But in general, it is considered the worst class literally because of that one demerit. Its ability in PvP is gimped versus everyone else purely because of no Shinma buff. So if someone tells you Mage is the worst class, that's why. That's the only sole reason why. So if you're a PvE warrior, you're not even going to notice. And I just wanted to make sure that gets across because it's really important that people understand that this game is extremely balanced, except for that one single demerit, which I think is ridiculous. There's probably a reason for it though. Now, DPS jobs. Weapons do have different effects. Spears, orbs, and hammers are all AoE with their skills. Spears and orbs use magical AoE attacks. Hammer uses physical AoE. Gun and sword hit single target. Guns hit magical while swords use physical. This is important to remember only because if you're fighting enemies, like let's say you're against a boss and the boss has extremely high magic resist, you don't want to be sitting there smacking it with a magical area of effect weapon. You're going to be hitting like a wet noodle. You probably want to switch to a physical single target like a sword, right? Or vice versa. There's 3 strong enemies on the board. You probably want to use an AoE weapon. So it's just remembering what all of them do, what kind of stats they use to dish out their damage. Food for thought kind of thing. You'll get used to it as you play. Dungeons, these are also pretty important. Dungeons, there are 2 different types that happen. They open for 30-minute windows multiple times over the day. The big one is Raid. A boss spawns and it scales. Easy to difficult as you progress and all that. Rewards for it include gems and SS/SR nightmares, whatever Global's going to end up using for its denomination, whatever. But anyways, you can get pretty good rewards from it. Hosting the raids is recommended because you can get a husk weapon or a shell weapon, or whatever Global decides to call it. They become extremely, extremely good after evolving it and investing and upgrading and all that fun stuff. The other one that opens is the Equipment Fodder Dungeons. Happens less frequently than raids, but it also stays open for 30 minutes, and you just hop in and you can just get a whole bunch of stuff to upgrade your gear and weapons and whatnot. But let's say you're not able to make it for the Fodder Dungeon. That's fine. Every day, the game gives every player 2 keys that can open the stage for 10 minutes, and 1 silver key you get weekly. And you can just farm it whenever you feel like it. Thing is, unlike the normal dungeon windows, during these key dungeon runs, only guildmates can join you. So just keep that in mind when you're doing them. And the last thing on here, what do I miss out on by being fully free to play? Because that is a question that was asked, and that's pretty important to know because there's a lot of people that are going to be playing this game free to play. So first off, you're not going to actually be missing that much. First of all, don't worry. You're going to miss out on paid nightmares. They have better stats than normal nightmares. They don't require SP to summon. But, it's a good but, a guild only really needs 1 copy. You don't need 1 for every member. Just 1 person in your guild needs it and needs to have it equipped. So if your guild has at least 1 person that's willing to spend, you're gold. You'll also miss out on paid jobs. This is a little more impactful because you're going to be missing the passive stats that these jobs can bring. Granted, they're not huge numbers, but once you start missing several of them, they will eventually start adding up. So just keep that in mind. The paid job packs in JP cost 3,000 yen, and it was a job just right there. And the last thing that's paid only is the Arcana packs. You can still get Arcana cards through the Metal Exchange shop and other places, but they do occasionally just sell Arcana cards. And those limit break your jobs, like I said, so you'll be missing out on more passive stats and whatnot. So those are pretty much the three core things you're going to be missing if you're going to be a purely free-to-play player of SINoALICE. So, yeah. Hopefully the FAQ kind of covered everything that had to be talked about. Hopefully, there's no real questions left. It did go over pretty much everything that people ask really often. I think the last thing that I personally saw, people are asking, should I roll on the near collab when it starts up? And all I'm going to say is, like I said, the more jobs, the better. If you want to save, go ahead. But at the end of the day, with collaborations, you don't know if they're going to roll around again or how long it'll take. So it's really up to your own discretion. If you think you can live without the characters, then go ahead, don't roll. But if you like the characters, go for it. The other thing too, don't worry about collecting every single job from the gacha. Only really worry about it if you really, really want to play competitive. Frankly, the JP account that I had, I can't even remember what rank I was, but I was relatively up there. I only rolled for characters that I really liked, and I was doing more than fine clearing the event content that came out and all that. So don't feel too much pressure. Play it casually. As long as you go in knowing what you're going to be missing by not doing stuff, you'll be fine. Like, you saw those numbers, right? 2,753 attack, right? If you miss a single job that has plus 50 physical attack, it's not a big deal. Like, this is low-level stuff. We got people in JP that have like 300,000 total power. 50 points doesn't really matter at that point. It matters a lot more in the early game, but once you start moving up there and we're 4, 5, 6 months in and people are running around with 70, 80k power, it's going to be negligible at that point. And it's really just comes down to the min-maxing. So play the game the way you want, roll on the characters you want, and just play it casually if you want to. It's not a big deal. Anyways, hopefully that should answer everything, and I might make another video before the game releases, but if not, I'll try my best to regularly stream the game when it comes out. So first, big thanks to NatFallen for compiling this FAQ for me that I use as a reference for the entire video. Thanks to the SINoALICE official public Discord for answering questions I had and answering questions that other players have that kind of spurred this whole thing on. And I hope everyone comes and joins the server for the game's release because, yeah, it's a pretty cool place to hang out. Anyways, see you later.